The diplomatic council of Vexthar had weathered many storms in its 3,000-year history. They had negotiated peace between warring star systems, resolved trade disputes that spanned light years, and even mediated first contact protocols with 17 different species. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared Ambassador Krelix for the sight before him. Two juvenile Vexitharians, cubs barely past their second molt, were engaged in what could only be described as a savage territorial dispute. Their chittering voices echoed through the diplomatic quarters as they yanked, pulled, and tumbled across the floor. The object of their conflict? A peculiar fabric tube that the human crew member called a sock. "This is unprecedented," Krelix muttered, his mandibles clicking in distress. His diplomatic robes hung askew as he tried and failed, for the 7th time, to separate the younglings. In all my years of service, I have never witnessed such behavior. The human responsible for this chaos, Engineer Marcus Webb, stood leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed and an infuriatingly amused expression on his face. He watched the cubs with the same casual interest one might observe clouds drifting across a sky. "Aren't you going to do something?" Krelix demanded, his translator struggling to convey his exasperation. Marcus shrugged. "They're just playing. No harm in it, no harm." Krelix's eye stalks quivered. They have been at this for 3 standard hours. The morning diplomatic briefing was delayed. The Zartanian ambassador refuses to leave his quarters because of the noise. And your sock has somehow become the most coveted item on this entire station. It had started innocently enough. The human had left his laundry basket outside his quarters, while he helped repair a malfunctioning gravity generator in Sector 7. Krelix's cubs, visiting their father during school recess, had discovered the basket. More specifically, they had discovered the socks. To the Vextharians, who possessed exoskeletons and no use for foot coverings, the stretchy, colorful tubes were fascinating. But this particular sock, a bright red one with small yellow symbols the human called smiley faces, had triggered something primal in the cubs. The smaller cub, Zix, had grabbed one end. His clutchmate, Terra, had seized the other, and from that moment an epic battle had begun. "It's perfectly normal," Marcus explained, finally straightening up. "Back on Earth, dogs do this all the time. It's called play aggression. They're not actually fighting, they're bonding." Krelix stared at the human as if he'd just proposed dissolving the station's hull plating. Bonding? They are destroying diplomatic property and creating a station-wide incident. It's a $3 sock from Target. I do not know what a target is, but that is irrelevant. Krelix gestured wildly at the cubs, who had now rolled into the corridor, still locked in their eternal struggle. The Galactic Council representatives arrive in 6 hours for the trade summit. How do you propose we explain that the children of the station's lead ambassador are engaged in tug of war? Marcus supplied helpfully. I do not care what you call it. By hour 5, word had spread throughout the station. Crew members from a dozen different species had gathered to watch the spectacle. The Zartanians, with their multiple arms, tried to confiscate the sock, but found the cubs surprisingly agile. The crystalline lumens attempted to reason with the younglings in 17 different languages. Nothing worked. The cubs had transcended simple play. This had become a matter of pride, of honor, of absolute determination. Neither would release their prize. They took turns sleeping, one maintaining grip while the other rested. They developed strategies, feints, and counter-moves that would have impressed military tacticians. "This is your species' fault," Krelix accused Marcus during hour 7. "Humans and their strange fabric coverings. Why do you even need such things?" "Keeps our feet warm," Marcus said, now sitting cross-legged on the floor, eating something he called popcorn while watching the cubs. He'd apparently decided this was entertainment. Plus, they're comfortable. "Comfortable," Krelix repeated bitterly. "My career is ending because of comfortable." But then something remarkable happened. Other cubs, hearing about the great sock battle, began to arrive. They didn't join the fight. No, this was Zix and Terra's contest. Instead, they formed a circle around the combatants, chittering encouragement. The Lumen's children began emitting soft, rhythmic light patterns. Even the notoriously serious Zartanian younglings watched with fascination. When the Galactic Council representatives arrived, they found not chaos, but something unexpected. The diplomatic quarters had transformed into an impromptu gathering place. Adults from different species stood side by side, united in their bafflement and amusement. Children who normally segregated by species were playing together, inventing new games inspired by the Great Sock. War, the human engineer's simple sock, had accomplished what decades of diplomatic efforts had struggled to achieve. It had created genuine community. Ambassador Krelik stood beside Marcus as they watched. Council Representative Thaxmul, a dignified Vextharian elder, actually smiled at the scene. Perhaps, Thaxmul said quietly, there is wisdom in allowing the young to simply be young, regardless of species. The cubs, now on their 9th hour, showed no signs of stopping. Marcus offered the ambassador some popcorn. Want to know the funny part? Krelik sighed, his exhaustion complete. What? I've got 11 more pairs in my quarters. The ambassador's eye stalks drooped in resignation. Then, despite everything, he began to laugh. A clicking, chittering sound that mixed with Marcus's deep chuckle. 3 days later, the cubs finally released the sock simultaneously, too tired to continue. By then, galactic tug-of-war had become the station's most popular interspecies activity. And Marcus's socks? They became the most requested items in the station's trade market. The Diplomatic Council formally declared them instruments of peaceful cultural exchange. Marcus just called it Tuesday.